Hi, my name is Rita Chinda, and I welcome you to IP series where I talk about recent IP cases and development globally. If this is your first time joining us, please favorite my podcast on Anchor so you don't miss out on any episode. Today, I have with me another guest, and we'll be talking about something really interesting that I feel will be beneficial to both creatives, companies, brands, and innovators. Let me know what you think after this recording. Let's welcome our guests for this episode. Before I let our guest introduce herself, our main topic of discussion today is on merchandising. She works in the retail and merchandising sector, so I thought it would be a good thing to talk about the roles, how important it is, why creatives and innovators and brands should consider merchandising. So let's welcome Selena to our podcast and get talking.
Welcome, Selena, to IP series. Could you tell us your name and just give us like a brief bio
Sure.
about what you
So
do?
my name is Selena Davis. As you said, I have a company called Nostalgic, and basically what we do is we look at how brands are presented in store and from a retail and a sort of experiential standpoint, and figure out how we can best communicate that brand's proposition to its consumers. So if that brand is in a retail store, we help them really look at ways that they can elevate their presence within those spaces. And then that message can also be translated through events and other areas that they may execute to maximize their consumer engagement. I also look into content marketing as well. So looking at how things are now moving to online and different ways in which brands need to communicate to their customers, figuring out what content they potentially may need, be it video content, educational content for their stakeholders. So I've been doing in and out in this particular industry for a number of years. I have been in the hair and beauty and fashion industry for over 15 years, and before that I was in telecommunications as well. So I have some insights into sort of the whole FMCG world in terms of consumer goods and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm from London originally, but now I'm based in the US.
Great. And you're also a
I am,
podcaster
yes.
as
So
well,
similar
right?
to yourself, I launched my podcast
Yeah.
back in August. Well, I finally decided to launch it in August, should I say. And that really is on it's not directly related to work. It's more about sort of our life and life experiences. But I'm really super excited and happy that I have decided to take on that side of myself and connecting with human beings and who we are and just becoming the best versions of ourselves. So yeah, my podcast is called Butt Naked Wisdom, and I'm super happy and excited that I finally decided to get on and do it.
Great. So we'll check that out. You guys should also check that out. So, what is
So,
merchandising,
so
basically?
merchandising is basically the activity of promoting sales of goods. So basically, if you have a product, what are you doing in order for that product to sell? So a lot of the time, depending on your relationship with stores, for example, how are you helping that store to promote your brand? And that's where merchandising comes into play. So, as a company or a brand, I can take on that task to make sure that my products are well merchandised on shelf, or the retailer has that
Yeah.
responsibility through their infrastructure to just make sure that what you see on shelf is presented in the best way and the best light for consumers to purchase.
Okay, so building on that, can you give us an example of a merchandising strategy that you would advise
Yeah,
someone to
so there are
adopt?
different ways in which you can utilize merchandising. Number one, I think a big area, especially if you are new and you are launching potentially a new item in a store, you really want to have a strategy that, looks at brand awareness and traffic building. So what are your ways of getting the consumer to see you in the store and basically get that exposure that you need as much as you can? So if you are in a very highly competitive category, you want to be able to stand out, or you would just merge amidst the rest of the products that are on the shelf, or you can, elevate your presentation at shelf to give that customer, an eyesight of who you are as a brand. Another way, obviously, that a lot of brands would do merchandising is obviously to gain profit generation. So that's another strategy that you would use, because you want to generate more profit. You would invest into merchandising to ensure that you gain as much impact and engagement for your products against those of your competitors. Another strategy that you could work against is defense. So I'm a product company, and I know that it's very, very highly competitive, be it price competitive, be it my proposition. So I might do a promotion just to literally drive and defend my position in that particular category. And then another one could be transactional building. So I'm trying to get as many products into that basket. So I'm going to do whatever I can to be it, price decrease, reduction, really go out and go all out with relationships with that retailer to get end cap promotions or pallet promotions so that I can really drive customers to my product.
So, who can actually go into
So it's really
merchandising?
anybody, to be honest. There are companies out there, obviously, that do the merchandising, and some retailers have their preferred partners that they use to do the actual execution of
Yeah.
merchandising. But depending on your relationship with the stores, mass and chain, or your beauty supply stores, for example, or your, some of your drug stores, it really just depends on their infrastructure. But generally speaking, if you want a career in merchandising, there's lots and lots of opportunities out there for anyone to participate in it.
So, my next question borders on the relationship between intellectual property and merchandising. What do you have to say with regards to that?
So really, it's intellectual property is about sort of your rights, right? So if I'm the product owner of my product or my design, then obviously I have the ownership of that. So I can do what I want with that particular product in terms of its impact in the store. Now, if I'm a company where I'm using, I'm going through a different company to launch my product, then there may be some, IP rights that go to the other company. So it really just depends on where your rights fit in terms of that particular brand and your relationship with the product or image. And you can have things like models, for example, which you have to gain the rights for usage, or it could be the product name, or it could be the whole, the product development element of it. So it really just depends on where you're positioned from a company standpoint, and that relationship that you have with that particular product or brand, and how you can maximize your rights within that.
Fantastic. So, how important is branding
I think
when it
branding is
comes to a
vitally,
merchandise?
vitally important. And I say that because we tend to shop with our eyes. So if I'm a brand, I can, merge and miss all of the other products that are out there, right? So I can just look like everybody else and just hope that somebody, picks me up. But if I really want to stand out as a brand, I really have to understand, number one, how my customer buys and what triggers them to purchase. And then from there, if my branding matches that way of, their engagement, then I've made a successful, branding, should I say. So I think it's very, very important if you want to stand out, if you want your brand to, not be, left on the shelf, so to speak. And if you want to have a competitive edge, you need to make sure that you do stand out, and your branding is definitely important.
Yeah, and this can contribute to the
I think
growth
so,
of
for sure. I mean,
economy or the
obviously
company
everything,
itself, right?
works together. But I think definitely it does elevate markets. So if you have
Yeah.
brands, say for example, in Europe or Africa or in the US, if those brands are strong in that particular market, it does have an effect on other marketplaces, and it makes them say, oh, I want that product, or oh, look at what they're doing over there, or it gives that kind of influence to other markets. So I definitely think it's a great way to leverage your presence from an economic standpoint, and growth and an impact across the world.
So what sectors do you think
So I would
really
say
need to explore
food.
merchandising?
We purchase so much food goods all the time. I think they can do a lot more. I think the hair and beauty world as well can do a lot more. And let me just say, it really just depends also on the retailers as well, because there are some limitations that some of these retail companies have, for brands to be able to really do a lot of merchandising in. But you have companies like your Sephora and your Ulta. Those places kind of, garner that relationship of wanting to, really look at ways to present brands in a different light. But some of your mass and chain stores may not as much, but I think there's definitely still opportunities to be able to do that. So I think, generally speaking, across the board, I think a lot of brands can really, a lot of industries and categories can really elevate itself a lot more in the merchandising space.
So what are the benefits of exploring
I think
merchandising
it
from
definitely
the
should be
business
a
perspective?
strategy that you consider before you launch, because that's your way of giving your brand a head start. As I said, a lot of times if you are launching for the first time there and it's in a mass and chain or retail, industry, there tends to be limitations in how many doors you can go into. And if you are only in a limited amount of doors, the success of your brand is based on
Mhm.
sales in those particular stores. So if you want your brand to expand in the door count for that particular retailer, I think you would be smart to really hit the ground running with the best presentation of your goods to maximize the best turnover, to then show that retailer that your product needs to be in an extended amount of doors because of the success levels and because of the investment that they can see that you have done from a brand standpoint.
Great. So we know that Beyonce and Adidas just released the new Ivy Park um, collection. Do you think the pandemic kind of affected merchandising, especially the industries that actually interfaces
I think it
with
has, and there's two
merchandising
two areas
generally?
that I would say. Customers have started to change, as we know, the way in which they shop. So our engagement inside of stores has become obviously a lot more limited because of the pandemic. Although we are still shopping, we're still buying, we're still going out there. But that time that we spend, as in browsing time, potentially has definitely limited itself, and a lot of sales are now driven online. So I will definitely say it has been impacted. However, from a brand perspective, you can see, like you had mentioned, the Ivy Park, and even when you look at Cardi B and the Reebok and some of these other brands, they've just changed the way in which they have gain that kind of exposure from a PR standpoint and utilize the social media platforms to showcase their merchandise, and then that's driven consumers to the store or online. So it's just taken a different way, or having a different eye in how you do your merchandising to drive the customers to the store. But I definitely think there's opportunity even within the pandemic to um, elevate yourself, because no one's really doing it. So I think this is the perfect time to stand out, because people are very skeptical and they're not investing as much in this area. You have all the opportunity to stand out if you wanted to within this particular time.
So going forward now, what trends should we be looking out for
I
in
think the trend that we should really
2021?
look at is a hybrid of two. So, as I had mentioned, if in-store sales is important to you, then you need to make sure that you are maximizing what opportunities you have in those stores. I also believe if you are gonna continue, and we're gonna continue in this sort of pandemic, quarantined effect on life for a little while, we also need to look at ways that we are promoting ourselves and engaging from a digital standpoint as well. So it's definitely a hybrid of thought, a hybrid in which a way of which we are merchandising, but there are huge opportunities to take advantage of with the consumers that are going into store, with the use of AI and all those kind of apps out there. We definitely need to look at those, and people want to still engage with brands. They still want that experience, so that should never be something that should be taken off the card. It should definitely still be there. We just need to think of it in a slightly different way.
Okay, so any final
I think,
words on
just in
our
general, as
topic
we
for
talk about
today?
merchandising, I think, there's so many, especially now, and especially with the increase, I would say even in 2020, with a lot of new companies coming out and a lot of, small businesses starting up in this year, especially now, I think we just need to look at how we connect with our customers. I'm a strong believer in experience. I'm a strong believer that the customer is, should be the first thought when it comes to brand development. And as long as we know who that customer is, know how they purchase, know how we want our brands to be positioned, and how long we want our brands to be successful for, we definitely need to have a 360 eye on the way in which we approach branding, approach merchandising, and how we execute our relationships with mass and chain or drugstores or beauty supply stores or any form of retail moving forward.
Great. So thank you so much, Selena, for honoring our
Thank you so much.
invitation. I hope you had a good time as well as I did. Any
I mean,
comments for
this
me?
was good.
So, guys, if you agree with Selena that this was a good episode, please let me know by favoriting my podcast on Anchor, liking and sharing. You can also send me comments about what you think of the Christmas edition so far. So until the next IP series Christmas edition, have a good holiday, guys. Cheers. Bye.